listening to Cinema Spin. Hello, everybody. I am Matt.
I'm Jason.
And welcome to a brand new episode of Cinema Spin.
We're back.
After a week away, we're back. And, man, we've got two more movies to review.
Yep, we got two more movies. Just, to chit-chat, the Oscars were announced this week. That's
right.
Really matters
it's a thing.
I guess it has to matter.
It's one of the two biggest nights for movies, right?
I mean,
guess. You have to at least, you have to still at least acknowledge their presence.
Yeah, you've heard me complain about this, but it's so much less fun. There's like 8 to 10 Best Picture nominees.
Yeah,
it just makes it no fun to sort of handicap.
Well, yeah, it's because
every movie that had any sort of critical acclaim, and financial success is going to be nominated, except for movies that actually made money, like Spider-Man.
Anyone who pays somewhat close attention should be able to come up with 7 to 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
So, and I think I had 8 out of 10 or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, that was the Dark Knight rule, right? Because they changed that because they wanted to make more. They wanted to expand the field to have more commercial movies. Because every time the Oscar nominations, there are all these sort of critically acclaimed sort of art house prestige movies, right?
The general populace hasn't gotten to yet, or
exactly.
will never get to.
Exactly. But what's happened since they've done that? Given 5 more chances, they're going to nominate 5 more prestige Oscar movies.
Yeah,
right?
That seems to be the case. It takes something like Dune to break that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, even Dune is
some art house credibility.
Yeah, has a little more art house cred, but I mean, look at Spider-Man. I mean, everybody loves Spider-Man. It made a ton of money. Why not nominate Spider-Man?
Well, yeah, especially when there's some that are nominated that you can really kind of, I mean, to each his own. But
yeah,
I think, who would argue that Don't Look Up didn't need to be nominated?
Right.
I mean,
yeah, right. I mean, I don't have the list in front of me, and God knows I'm not going to.
Well, I think you'd pull King Richard, I'm sure.
Oh God, King Richard, yes.
And
not a fan.
I didn't. I don't know. I wouldn't have considered it a Best Picture nominee when I watched it, but I don't. It's not something that offends me necessarily.
King Richard's exactly the kind of movie, the kind of second tier art house movie. That wouldn't have gotten nominated back with only 5 nominations, but now there's 10. They'll throw that in, So it's yeah. Anyway, so that's the end of my rant. I also was upset that the actress whose name is escaping me, the contortionist, who was the best reason to see The Tragedy of Macbeth.
The one who played the witches.
The witches, yes. Boy, she should have got nominated for Best Supporting Actress and didn't. But. Okay, there's my impromptu rant about the Oscars.
The guy from Coda, first deaf male to ever be nominated.
And Coda nominated for best picture, probably not gonna make it in, but any attention that movie gets, I love that movie.
Two married couples are nominated. That's kind of weird. Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz both nominated.
Yeah,
as well as Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst.
Oh, right, Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst.
For playing a married couple in a movie, so
yes, right.
Yes, some of the weird quirks of the Oscars this year.
Of course, if you're of the people in Power of the Dog, I mean, I guess Jesse Plemons is okay, but I was not particularly a fan of Kirsten Dunst in that movie. So I mean,
I thought she was
fine. The character
out of the 4 nominees, I thought Jesse Plemons was the one that was. The easiest for him to pull off.
I
thought he could. So it didn't require a lot of him.
Yeah, and I kind of feel the same way about her performance too. So it's strange. It's good to see. Obviously, the other actors nominated,
but that's the movie that's clearly got all the. Obviously, every major actor in that film is nominated for their particular.
Yeah. Right.
Category. So. I think that's got to be the front runner at this point.
Yeah, certainly. It's really done well in the sort of pre-Oscar competition.
From what I understand, the only thing that is sort of yet to be seen as far as its viability is ultimately will the Netflix of it all be enough to, because there are significant members of the Academy that will not vote for a movie that was released on Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
But maybe we're at the point where, a few years ago that wasn't possible. Now it might be.
Yeah.
And we're going to get there eventually because that's just the future.
That's just how it's going to be. Right.
But I don't know. We'll see. Find out in a couple months. A long way to go to find out the winners this year.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I guess let's get into the review portion of our show.
Okay. Yes.
And, take it away.
Okay, so the new movie that we are talking about this week is Kenneth Branagh's Death on the Nile, right?
Death on the Nile.
Death on the Nile, right?
That's right.
So this is Kenneth Branagh's follow-up to his movie that came out in 2017, Murder on the Orient Express. This was his first. That was his first foray into adapting the famous novels of Agatha Christie, right? And like that movie, this has just a big ensemble cast with lots of different characters and lots of different people, and lots of different motives for maybe wanting people dead, and a lot of people who are willing to kind of casually try to kill other people, right? Lots of red herrings.
Everyone has a major character flaw.
Yes. So, okay. So what do we have here? Well, actually, Death on the Nile, the truth of the matter is, Death on the Nile is a science fiction story about a hairy alien symbiote who attaches itself to Kenneth Branagh's face and forces him to speak in a terrible French accent. No. Really, it's a mystery about an ill-fated boat trip made by a small army of rich people up the titular river. There is simply no way to summarize who all these people are and why some of them might want each other dead.
Jack, why would you try?
The movie tries for 90 minutes and still can't make it all clear. But one of them is the legendary detective Hercule Poirot, played by Kenneth Branagh. With the comically awful mustache, right? Another is a newlywed played by Gal Gadot, looking gorgeous, who has to watch her back because her husband's former lover has invited herself along on their honeymoon up the Nile. The rest of the cast is mostly and oddly a cavalcade of problematic actors. There is comedian turned professional conspiracy theorist Russell Brand. In a pointlessly dramatic role. There is anti-vaxxer and transphobe Letitia Wright, of Black Panther fame for now. And of course, there is sexual sadist and aspiring cannibal Armie Hammer, in presumably his final major film role.
With any luck.
So, people die. Poirot solves the murders before Armie Hammer eats the bodies. What did you think, Matt?
Well, I didn't think a whole lot of this. I knew there was going to be a problem when I figured out who was the murderer really early on.
Yeah.
I should start growing my ridiculous mustache now.
Wait, you're getting some facial hair growing right now.
It took him an entire film to figure out something that it was pretty obvious to me.
Yeah.
Because I've not seen any earlier version of this, but if you're familiar with Agatha Christie, the person who has the least possibility by the scenario to have done it obviously usually did it.
Right. But on the way, there are so many, like I said, red herrings and the
accusatory fashion in which Perot or whatever you're supposed to say. Yeah, no matter what no matter the actors, no matter what kind of accent they have, whenever they say Hercule Poirot,
right,
they say it in perfect French dialect.
Right, yes, they
snap out of their American accent.
Right.
Yeah. The accusatory nature in which he questions people to where they feel like, every time it's like you're supposed to think, well, this is it. He's nailing them down to the
right. Yeah,
telling them why they did it, and and then it just goes over and over while he questions every single person.
Right.
I didn't get into this at all. It just felt like a movie that was just going through the motions. Really, it had all the tenets of the typical Agatha Christie stuff. All those characters making their. There's all these set pieces where Poirot's about to say something, and all the characters slowly appear in the hallway. They all peer out.
They all peer out. Like
they all got to be assembled. Otherwise, if somebody's missing, you'd suspect
that's
them.
a clue.
Right. This is just pretty dumb. I mean, it's just this features some super shoddy special effect. I mean, CGI.
Exactly. For more than an hour of this movie called Death on the Nile, there's no death. It's just the Nile,
and there's no Nile for a long time either.
well, no, and so really the first half is just the Nile, right? But Kenneth Branagh as the director is so he's so obsessed with showing how beautiful all of the scenery is, and it's all clearly done on a computer, on a hard drive in Tarzana, right?
Yeah,
it's none of it looks real for an instant, and he assumes we haven't seen a movie since Jurassic Park, right? That we can just sit back and awe at how lifelike these the pyramids look.
Yeah,
right?
You're talking about, we're seeing lifelike beasts being animated now.
Yeah,
scenery is not. It should be able to fool us.
Yes, right.
Now in the movie, there's like an emphasis or maybe an obsession with symmetry. Is that a Perot characteristic? Because I was thinking, because a lot of times there are things like when he's sitting when he's sitting watching the pyramids, the pyramids are in perfect symmetry, and there's a bunch of other things. As things are going through doors, they're perfectly symmetrical. Two boats are moving, they're symmetrical. And there's also a sequence when they're in the morgue, the makeshift morgue on the boat, and there's a dead body, and one of the feet is askew. Perot nudges the foot to make it symmetrical with the other foot. So I don't know if that's like a character trait of Perot.
I think he is
obsessive compulsive
OCD.
Yeah,
I think that's a
okay.
That's
as a director, Kenneth Branagh might be as well.
Right. You think if he were, you think his special effects would look better, right?
You would think.
So the first hour of this movie is a prescription strength sedative.
Well, first of all, this movie starts with an origin story for a mustache.
Yes, it does. For the famous mustache, right? Right, yes. And good, because that mustache requires explanation.
It does, I suppose. Right. That might be the best part of the movie, though.
Yeah, right. So I mean, if you have to see this movie, I suggest you don't. But if you have to see this movie, I suggest like a case of Red Bull and a bucket of ice water, right? Because you are going to need it through the first hour of this movie until finally somebody dies, right? But the first hour of this movie, I mean, there are whole scenes where he's just listing people in the cast and what they do for a living, right? It's just like, well, there's this person, and then this person, and this person, and he might have a motive for blah, blah, blah. And he doesn't like her because she controls his money, and blah. It's just like, ugh.
He's clearly in love with this character.
Yeah, right.
And it's just...
And too much in love with, I guess, the source material, right?
The source material is really old-fashioned by today's standards.
Definitely.
And that's really the problem here, because it's pretty true.
I think you're right there. I think a lot of what we're complaining about is Agatha Christie.
Yeah, I think an older, for somebody who's been into that their whole life might think this is a reasonable adaptation of the material, because it probably is. It just doesn't ring true for me. You know me, I tend to over prepare and see a lot of movies tangential to it. I considered watching the original 1978 version with Peter Ustinov as Perot, and I considered watching the Murder on the Orient Express just to see kind of what the maybe better version of this material is. But I swear to God, after I saw this movie, I drove myself to the hospital to have a blood transfusion, because I was just so I physically felt bored, right? Well, at least the cat.
I felt like it had just drained the life out of my body, right? So yeah.
At least the cast of Murder on the Orient Express is not so problematic. I mean,
just Johnny Depp, yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
When you see Armie Hammer dancing,
with
Gal Gadot, and the way he's like,
Yeah.
There's sort of dirty dancing.
Yeah,
whatever.
right. Yeah.
It just feels extra creepy. 'Cause,
Yeah,
he's like
hoping
to get a rib sandwich. Later.
Yeah, right. He's right. He likes it. Right.
It's just...
yes. Yes, bad casting. I mean, that scene's creepy. We're expected to sort of care about him and care about what happens to him and so on. And I found it really hard to sort of get past, him and his problems.
And
why any good-looking actor can play this part. There is nothing asked of him particularly
not.
challenging here. So yeah, once again, I this is more a complaint about Agatha Christie, but like as I said before, it's fascinating in these movies how casually people just try to kill each other, right? Because even at the end when it's revealed who the real killer is, there were all these other sort of half-assed attempts to kill people.
Yeah,
the
there's
whole time.
other crimes.
And so, there's other crimes. So you have to like say, "Oh well, no, it wasn't him. It was this other guy." And then he's like, "Yep, that was me. I saw my chance, and I tried to push a big rock on top of him." Right?
And that guy leaves unscathed. I mean, spoiler alert. But,
right? Yes, I guess we're spoiling this movie.
But, my issue with. As the podcast firearms expert, I have some ballistic issues with this movie as well.
Oh, yeah?
Well, a .22 is not a good murder weapon.
Yeah.
It's unpredictable, especially out of that short-ass little gun.
Yeah, with this 1939 little...
And then at the end, when they shoot each other through with the same gun...
Yeah.
That bullet's not going to penetrate two people.
Yeah, well, right, yeah, exactly, right, yeah. There's no way a .22 is going to make it through... It barely would make it through Armie Hammer.
If it made it through...
Spoiler alert. I'm sorry.
If it made... if it made it through the first person, it certainly wouldn't have any,
No, there was also a .45 automatic hanging around.
Yeah,
now
that'll work.
That'd shoot. That maybe shoot.
One person was murdered with that.
Yeah, right.
From behind the curtains.
Yes.
Again, don't listen to this podcast.
Right.
I mean, if the worst thing that ever happens to you is you get this movie spoiled for you, you're living a charmed life as far as I'm concerned.
The thing is, I think even with the spoilers that we're giving here, this movie is so convoluted that you're not gonna.
It's like not.
You're not gonna see any of it coming.
Yeah, unless somebody's studying this podcast, and why would they?
Right.
Save your money.
Yeah, there's just so much explaining, there's so much homework in this movie. So it's so hard to keep track of any of the characters that I don't want to. I stopped trying. I don't care which of them killed each other. I don't care which of them die or why. Stop. Enough. Right. This is a movie where you check the time like 2/3 of the way through, and you're like, oh my god, how can there still be another half an hour of this?
I disliked it. Less than you, but not by a whole lot.
Yeah,
it was
didn't require medical attention.
No defibrillators necessary.
Yes, but, I genuinely.
I don't think the crowd that was with me was too into it either. I didn't hear any reactions.
Did you hear any snoring?
I don't think I did.
The only snoring I heard was myself.
Snoring. Woke yourself with your own snoring.
I will admit this. This is bad, sort of like, movie critic or film fan etiquette. But my wife had to poke me a couple times because I had dozed off and was snoring.
I think it's forgivable in this case,
right? So
because after the first scene in the club, there's like before the murder happens, there's a real lull where nothing's going on whatsoever.
Except like characters, people.
Yeah, it's like people boarding the boat.
Right, yes.
And is it just me, or did that boat kind of just seem like a set? It didn't feel real.
Yeah, it didn't
granted,
seem real.
I know nothing about steamships of the Nile.
No,
in the 1930s.
It just seemed like everything else. It just seemed like a set. It seemed like maybe there was something in the foreground and everything in the background was painted on a computer somewhere in Hollywood.
Yeah,
right.
It's a very fake.
I told Beth at one point, like, Because they do love Branagh does love that ship. He ponders over it and shows us all the aspects.
Oh yeah,
how big and beautiful.
There's
the
no
yacht
part
is
of that
and
ship
everything.
you don't see.
Right? Yeah, and I said to Beth at one point, "God, this is like the most boring episode of Succession." Right? I don't know. I don't know if you watch that show, but they're always.
I don't, but I know.
Yeah, they're always on
show.
giant yachts. Right? Yeah. So watch Succession. Don't watch Death on the Nile.
Agreed. All right, well, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. And we are back for the second half of Cinema Spin.
Yes, we are.
Our random retro film for tonight is Magic, a psychological thriller from 1978. The film was directed by Richard Attenborough. And how odd is it that this is the third time the randomizer has given us an Attenborough film to review, the other two being A Bridge Too Far and Shadowlands. In Magic, the main character Corky is played by Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, that's right, a grown man named Corky. But I digress. Corky is an emotional, fragile student of a once great musician named Merlin. Merlin is dying, you see, and there is a race of sorts to get Corky the confidence he needs to succeed as a magician before Merlin is gone. As the movie begins, we see Corky on stage failing miserably, as not a single person in the audience is interested in his selection of card tricks. When we next see Corky, it is a year later and things have changed. The crowd loves him and the new partner he has acquired for his act, a ventriloquist dummy named Fats. The act is about to hit the big time, as we learn from his agent, played by Burgess Meredith. The late-night talk shows are beginning to call, and a television show might even be in the works. Triggered by a TV network wanting Corky to submit to a medical exam, the still emotionally fragile man flees for his life and the big city in an attempt to get things figured out and get his mind to a healthier place. He flees to the Catskills, the place where he grew up, and holds up in a rental cottage. The location is not a coincidence, however, as we soon learn the resort is owned by Corky's former high school crush, Peggy, played by Anne Margaret. Peggy is stuck in an unhappy marriage, and soon enough, Corky and Peggy begin a steamy/icky romance?
Yes, steamy and icky. Yes.
Things at that point only grow darker and more sinister, and the rest is sort of a... Well, you can probably guess.
You can guess. It's fairly predictable. One of the shortcomings of this movie, one criticism I make of this movie is that it is a bit predictable.
Yeah, I guess you kind of know where it's probably going to go.
Right.
What'd you think?
Full disclosure, I have a previous relationship to this movie. I had never seen it before, but circa 1978, I was traumatized by the TV spots for this. That just you can still see them online. They just have a sort of close up of Fats sort of talking about how he's going to get you and blah blah blah. Right?
That TV spot is effectively creepy.
Yes, and so I was terrified. So yes, it's been a long time coming for me to actually check this out. And my Uncle David used to make fun, use it against me and make fun of me. So
as all uncles should.
Yes. So it's been a long time coming. I really liked this movie. I looked at this movie's pedigree, and usually when a movie is pretty obscure and it has this kind of pedigree, you're like, oh, it's a stinker. We've kind of been through this before, right? This is written by William Goldman, who's a legendary screenwriter, one of the most famous screenwriters of all time, based on his novel. It's directed by, as you say, by Richard Attenborough. It's an early effort from Anthony Hopkins and Burgess Meredith. So I figured this movie was maybe going to be kind of a stinker and a miss. I really was pretty compelled by it. I think Anthony Hopkins is he plays a sympathetic loser really well, right? And his sort of gradual slide from being this kind of needy, emotionally unstable guy into full on sort of nutso, I thought was really effective.
This movie, obviously it's got problems and it's not paced particularly great in parts.
Yeah.
The performance though is just amazing. I just really think a lot of it. It's he's so fully into it. I mean,
Yeah.
as he is in probably everything he's ever done. I mean,
Yeah.
this guy's got a future in acting.
Yeah, this Tony Hopkins person is going places.
It's just a great performance.
Yeah.
And it just drives the movie. It's I mean, you look at it, you watch him making mistakes as a character, but because he's not like the clever genius, he's very fragile and vulnerable, and I think that's kind of what makes the character. It's not, this movie is not at all what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it wasn't really what I thought it was going to be either.
I thought it was going to almost turn into like a almost like a slasher movie with
I thought it was going to be a little
Chucky.
I thought it was going to be a little more straight up horror, and not about psychological, not as psychological as it was.
I like Burgess Meredith in this. In his
Burgess
role
Meredith
too.
is fantastic.
It is, and it's not a huge role, but it's just the whole time he's on screen, you're just like,
yeah, right. And he gets all the best lines.
Does.
William Goldman's sense of humor really shines through. He won an Oscar for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. He also wrote Princess Bride. So he's got a good sense of humor. But there's but Burgess Meredith gets some really great lines in here as his sort of like his agent, who is very sympathetic to him and wants him to succeed, but has also sort of seen it all. He's also sort of a killer, right? When he says, yes, his secretary, what's the first rule of being an agent? Right, and her response, because she's heard this a million times, is never forget that an actor killed Lincoln.
Right, I wrote that down.
Right, and later on, he's got he calls Corky and he's like, "I'm here with a room full of producers. There's this guy. I mean, between them all, there's an IQ of 100 here." Right.
I didn't catch that.
He says,
I didn't put it together.
Yeah,
or
this
whatever.
might be my favorite line in the movie. Is he says, "I lived through Tallulah Bankhead and the death of vaudeville. I don't scare easily." So yeah, he's fantastic. My favorite scene in this movie,
I think it's going to be the same.
the 5-minute scene.
The 5-minute scene. I got a circle around it.
Yeah.
That is so awesome.
It's so awesome. So Corky is in hiding in this place where he thinks nobody can find him. All of a sudden, his
The agents track him down.
Agent Ben tracks him down and sees him kind of having this unhealthy psychotic relationship with a dummy, right? And that Corky's only able to express himself through a dummy.
He swears
right?
it's not the case,
right?
And
so he sits him down and he says, "Okay,
I'll tell you what, kid.
I tell you what, go 5 minutes without talking through fats, and you'll prove it to me, right?"
Fine.
And that scene is really, really well done.
Cool.
It's perfectly written. It's perfectly acted. It's very well directed. It's just it's an example of this movie has some slack. It has some moments that aren't so great, and it has some moments that as I say are really predictable. But there's a lot of great scenes in this movie.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good. There's a lot of weird characters in this because I think Anne Margaret's character is a little strange.
Yes,
she's got she's written weird. She gives really weird dialogue.
Yeah,
like when Corky first shows up to try to get a room, they don't know who each other are at this point. And he's like saying, "I want a room," and she's like saying, "We're kind of closed."
Right? Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
You're kind of closed. You're open. Right? Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And she says something like at the end, "Are you ever something?" Some weird lines. But I think she's supposed to. They're trying to write her to be very down home and.
I think she's supposed to not be sort of too bright.
Yeah, I think she's supposed to be like
So the real star of this movie though is Fats, right? That dummy is terrifying.
It is.
And if that dummy were any less because there is a long tradition of scary dummy,
right?
And scary dummies in horror. There were 2 different Twilight Zone episodes about it. There have been lots of movies about some ventriloquist dummy turns evil, right? But I gotta say, Fats is the most disturbing, crazy dummy.
It's got the
in
right
cinema history,
like articulation.
Yeah, right.
And it doesn't look a lot like Anthony Hopkins, but just enough.
Yeah.
To say, oh, he's obviously. Well, and they wear matching clothes at times.
Yeah, it's right in the middle of the uncanny valley.
It
right?
is. I think that's a good example.
Yeah.
I mean, a good way of saying it.
Yeah. So another talking about good scenes. Another scene in this movie that really, really got me was we're not going to worry too much about spoiling, but Duke, the husband,
Right.
Duke is killed at one point. The scene where he is killed in this movie really, really got to me.
The fishing sequence, you mean, when they're out on the boat, or
no, where he comes in and he's sneaking around the Corky's apartment, and he sees Fats by himself. Right.
Yeah. Right.
That scene is really, really well done.
Yeah, because it makes you think that the dummy did the murder at first by himself.
Yeah.
But obviously,
I also almost don't want to ruin it for.
That's true.
Right. But yeah, you're convinced, because this whole movie they kind of play it on the edge of whether how much of this is in Corky's mind and how much of it might be
right.
The dummy might be actually evil, right? Yeah, and that scene really, really well done. Yeah, and totally got me thinking, what? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what at some point during the movie, I was like, oh man, I think I'm gonna like this movie.
Yeah,
I was not thinking that I was gonna, I thought it was gonna be a pretty throwaway movie.
Yeah. And it didn't turn, like you say, it didn't turn out to be the movie that I thought it was going to be, and it turned out to be a much, much better movie.
Now, I mentioned in my intro that the love affair is sort of icky. There's a weird scene when Corky and Peggy, played by Anne Margaret, get together and they're making love for the first time, and they're kissing, and it's just kind of weird. And then there's a lot of like finger play around the lips, and I just didn't go for that.
Right.
When there's a love scene going on, and you're like, ugh. I don't think that's what they're going for.
Right. And there's another scene where there are a couple scenes, I guess, where Anne Margaret is kind of flirting with Fats.
She's enamored with Fats.
Yeah, it's like kind of want to fuck the dummy. Right?
I texted Jason. I said, "Did I miss out on high school by not having a ventriloquist dummy?"
I think we could have used a little bit more in the beginning. This movie makes some unconventional choices at the beginning and sort of setting all of it up, or at least if it were made today, it would be set up differently. There would be a montage scene of him getting better and better at his magic, right?
Yeah.
Instead, it's and that's a cliche, and I don't necessarily want to endorse movies using cliches. Instead, though, in this, it's a little abrupt.
He goes from
really good.
Barely being able to contain us. I mean, to have a stage presence.
Yeah.
And he's so emotionally fragile, to dominating.
Yeah, and the other thing, and this is a kind of a bigger issue, is they don't do what they could have done with giving more insight into why it is that Corky is particularly prone to disassociating in this way, because it's one thing to be sort of a depressive loser and sad and whatnot and have mental problems, right? It's another thing to really go psychotic and disassociate.
Yeah, there's
this bizarre way where he's fixated on this alter ego. Right?
Yeah, and the way it's portrayed, this all has to happen in that lull between the blowout on stage and him having Corky and doing really well.
Right.
And yeah, if there'd have been like some sort of backstory, maybe.
Right. Now, I say that a bit apprehensively, because if we remade this movie today, it would all be sort of spelled out for us, right? It would be like, oh well, there's a flashback where he was beaten by his father, and his puppet was his only friend, right?
Yeah,
I don't want that.
The point is, do we really have to do that?
Right? Yeah. So I don't want that, but there needs to be a little more explanation of why he goes nuts in this way, especially since the flashbacks that we are given of his childhood seem perfectly normal, right? When he goes back to the Catskills and and sees his old house. Yeah. I mean, he's depressed that, that it's all dried up and the house is abandoned and everything.
There's no hint of what might have occurred there.
Yeah, but there's very little there's very little psychological insight into him, which is, I think, shortcoming.
Something I mentioned here that I thought Jerry Goldsmith's score in this is really good.
Yeah, speaking, another Oscar winner involved in this. Yeah, Jerry Goldsmith's
did a lot of work.
Score,
Jerry
yeah.
Goldsmith's done a lot of work for Star Trek, I know.
Yeah,
among
Patton.
many other things.
Yeah.
I mean, just
Yeah.
But I thought it was. I thought at one point I was listening to the music. I thought, oh, this is pretty good. This is got to be somebody I would know.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
And
yeah.
Of course,
Yeah.
I went and looked at the credits, and I did. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
He won for The Omen. The score for The
of
Omen.
course,
Yes.
which that was
another randomly
that's
selected.
very stylized and less traditional score than
Yeah,
this is.
yeah,
But
He should have won for Patton. That's one of the best scores.
yeah, that's a good score.
Also Planet of the Apes. So this is, this is one of the reasons we do this show. This is one of our
This is a
aspirations in making this show, was that we would go back and we would find movies that we missed or kind of forgotten that turned out to be pretty good. So far, True Grit and Magic, I think, are our success stories.
60 weeks. We've got 2 movies to show for it.
Right. About one a year.
Yeah.
Right.
I did not tell one person they got to go out and say beware the blob.
No. Or Dr. Goldfoot in the Bikini Machine. Right. Yeah.
Or its sequel.
Right. Yes.
It's been the true gems that we've been pointed to have been few and far between. But I'm happy to have the 2 we have. I guess it does give you sort of a jolt when it does happen.
Yeah. You're it's a little surprise. I guess the gimmick of the of this being sort of a thriller about a dummy is got this maybe a bit of a bad reputation, but it's a solid film.
You can only look at you look at it through what our expectations kind of were. I guess other people would have the similar thing, and that would kind of hold it down, I think.
Yeah.
And Anthony Hopkins learned ventriloquism for this movie.
Yeah. You can tell he's
quite. If he's as good as it looks like he is he's quite good.
Yeah.
Pleasant surprise with 1978's Magic. All right, let's find out what our random movie is for next week's show.
Okay.
The year 2002, so 20 years old this year. Road to Perdition.
But you might be right. Yes, I have not seen this movie. I know that Tom Hanks plays a gangster. Let's just say against type.
I would say so.
Yes.
He went the villain route very few times in his career, even to this day.
Yes, even to this day. So
I've seen the movie, but it's been probably... I know I saw it in the theater when it came out.
Okay.
It's been that long. Yeah, maybe I caught 5 minutes on cable or something.
Okay.
At some point, but
so
it'll be pretty fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
All right. As far as a new movie for next week, it's kind of up in the air again.
Yeah, up in the air.
We'll figure something out.
We will keep you informed.
Yeah,
You'll know when we do.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week with a brand new show. Goodbye for now.
Bye, everybody.